To me, negotiation is probably the key to saving a lot of money. Learning these negotiation skills is extremely important. And it's not always about the price. Most people think negotiation, they think about how can I negotiate the best price on this house. But what you've got to do is you've got to learn to educate yourself that it's not just about the price, it's about the vendor's needs, about what I can do to the house, and all these other areas. And once you've educated yourself, you've got to educate the real estate agent and the vendor, because most buyers will be going up to the real estate agent and saying, how about I take $10,000 off this price, and they'll be solely focused on the dollars. Whereas if you can educate them and go, look, I'd like to pay a certain amount for this property, how else can we get to this price? It's the best way of going about it. The real estate agent won't always know what the vendor needs are, or they might not want to tell you. They might be a bit backwards about it, because there's always this death, divorce thing. You can get the best deal, and they think, are you trying to find out this? Whereas you might be, but it's not for the reason of trying to rip them off. It's for the reason of trying to look after their needs first, and if you look after their needs, you'll be able to look after your own. Like as I said, match what you want to what they have for the best chance of success in getting that house. So here are a few ways of negotiating. Settlement date. It's more of an investing thing, but it can work on anything. So for example, if you were buying a house and you were going to renovate it, you could negotiate to pay the full price that the vendor wanted, but get a settlement date 90 days away with early access to the property. So that way you've got now 90 days to get in there, renovate the house, and by that stage if you're going to rent it out, it's ready to go straight away, or if you're going to sell it, it's ready to sell. In a lot of cases you'll probably have to pay an extra fee. You might have to effectively rent the house for a small fee each week, but if you're paying $2,000 a month in your interest repayments, over 3 months that's $6,000. So if you can negotiate, if you can push back a settlement date by 3 months, you could potentially saving $6,000, and the vendor still got what they wanted. They got their price, and you've got to get in early and do what you want to do to the house. So it's a real good way of, especially from an investing point of view, of saving some money. Repairs and maintenance, like I mentioned before, the stumping. You might find a house you really like, but unfortunately the stumping's shot. When you're a first home buyer, as Neil mentioned, you've got very limited funds to start with. So the last thing you need is to buy a house, pay your stamp duties, and then have a $10,000 bill to do your stumping. It's important to have the cash in your pocket. So you could say to the person who's the vendor is selling the house, how about you do the stumping before I buy it, or in the settlement period, so it's all done. I'll still pay the full amount of price. So at the end of the day, you're in the same position for what you paid for the house, because you might have been able to negotiate less, but your advantage becomes that the money's come out of their pocket and not yours. So you've got more cash to start with, which might then translate to not having to pay lender's mortgage insurance and other costs. So it sort of trickles down, so it can save you a lot of money. Large deposit. People would probably be more willing to sell cheaper if you can give them a large deposit up front, especially if they've had trouble selling it, it's been on the market a while. That subject to finance clause, people, they put that in and it falls through. They really want the house, but it falls through, and the vendor can become frustrated. So if you say, here's a 10-20% deposit, and give them a cheque and say, but the catch is that I'm paying $10,000 less for the house, well, that's, everyone wins. They get the peace of mind that this person's serious and they've got the money. There's going to be no problem with subject to finance. And that money simply just goes into trust with the real estate agent. So it doesn't actually change hands until settlement date. But it is another way, if you've got the funds available, to negotiate. Stamp duty. This is another one from a cash flow perspective for first home buyers. I don't think it's used very much, but I think it's a great way to get into the market. Rather than paying that extra on $300,000, it's about $14,000 stamp duty. Why not say to the vendor, I'll pay you $314,000 for your house, but you're paying the stamp duty. So that way, the money, the money's still in your pocket. You can reduce your lender's mortgage insurance. You can use that money to put into furnishings. It's first home. So rather than just having to pay this extra tax up front, it just gives you that extra option of having the cash flow available. I'll speak a little later as well about the negative side to doing that, but just be aware that's a good way to negotiate. Furnishings, like I said, another thing. You might see a nice house, but there's no dishwasher, there's no stove. You can say to the people, I'll pay the price you want as long as you add in these extra fittings. So when we move into our house, it's complete and I don't have to worry. A friend of mine recently bought a house, and it was a brand new house, and they discovered after they moved in that there was no fly screens or security doors or all these bits and pieces, and ended up costing them $2,000. So it's just a simple thing, because the house looks complete, but it's not. So, and that gets back to the checklist I was talking about before, just being aware of things that can cost you money. You wouldn't think of that if you just walk through a house. It looks good condition and everything, but simple thing like fly screens, they do add up. So something to be aware of. And negotiation goes both ways. Some of these things are a bit different, like I said, but find out what the vendor needs. The reason they're selling the house, find out why. Is it because they want to downgrade to a smaller house? Is it because they're moving overseas? Whatever it is, they might be in a position where they have to sell for $300,000 because they've got to pay the mortgage off and they're in financial trouble. So offering anything less is probably a waste of time. It doesn't help them, it doesn't help you. So if you can just find a way to look after their needs, you can work it out.